end of the day, relationships are very crucial. And as men, we need to realize when we cheat on the family to work, eventually it's never worth it. It's never worth it. Nobody in their deathbed has ever wished they spend more time at work, as it said. They always wish they spend more time at home with their children and with their wife, and also with the other people that they had a relationship with.
Have you ever thought of taking a day off or going on a vacation for a few days just to take a break? Well, I'm not talking about taking leave from work, but taking leave from being a man. Just a day off from being a man. The military have an acronym, AWOL, A-W-O-L, away without official leave. So soldiers can decide, look, I'm no longer fighting, I'm tired, I'm going home. And they say, look, you are AWOL. So I asked today, how many men are AWOL? How many husbands are AWOL? And how many fathers are AWOL? This is Adam's Cave. I'm your host, Kisinja Keprotich, and welcome to the cave, where we always say we want to drink from the 4 rivers in the Garden of Eden. Thank you most kindly for staying connected and being part of this conversation on our SMS line or WhatsApp. Hop TV is 0708 222 which you can see under the screen. But for our listeners on Hop FM, it's 0717 400 555. 0717 400 555. Or you can just drop in an SMS on 20933 or go to X, hashtag Adam's Cave. Now back to the military term AWOL. So we recently came across a report by Ndirangu Ngunjiri. He was a PhD student at the University of Nairobi. And he wrote something on Kenyan prisons and something on police stations around Kenya. And very, very interesting statistics. Number one, he says 46% of inmates were fatherless. 46%. Half of inmates were fatherless. 60% of juvenile inmates came from fatherless homes. Now 90%, and take this one, convicted rapists came from fatherless homes. The statistics are they're not just limited to Kenya, but we also did almost a similar conversation around the world, and they seem to replicate the same information. So today we ask, how can a father then have such a huge impact on the lives of their children? Welcome to the conversation, Dad is Destiny. Dad is Destiny. And it's my honor, distinct, to bring in a man, a very, very accomplished author. He's a deeply passionate man focused on transforming a nation through responsible masculinity and transformative leadership. Is our pastor, Simon Mbevi. Welcome back, Reverend.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
No, it's glad, and thank you for allowing us to use the title of your book, Dad is Destiny.
Yeah, well, I also got it from actually a U.S. newspaper article.
Yes.
Yeah, that where some sociologists had done a study, and that was their conclusion. Dad is Destiny.
Dad is Destiny. You know, it actually bothered me a little bit. I said, why are you saying Dad is Destiny? You're not saying Dad may be a destiny, or Dad could help into destiny, or Dad could define destiny. You actually seem to be equating Dad and destiny.
Yeah. Well, part of it is that fathers play a very crucial role, extremely crucial role. Unfortunately, in our culture, we say children belong to their mother. But in actual fact, children need both parents. And why fathers especially play a very crucial role is because between around 8 years to 16, 18 years, which is when children are becoming a man or a woman, the most important voice, psychologists would say, in that child's life is the father's voice. Naturally, they begin to look out for daddy around 8, 9, 10 years. And I've talked with a lot of single moms who tell me around that age, children begin to ask questions because that's the time they are thinking about identity. And I think, sociologically and even now psychologically, children begin to find their identity from their father. That's why we even use a surname. Our surname is usually our dad.
Father's name, yes.
And that just gives a sense of identity. You belong. You belong. And biologically, fathers are the ones who determine gender because they give the XY chromosome and the ladies XX. So in many ways, fathers are destiny. So there's identity. But number two, there's purpose. there's a way that fathers affirm and call out purpose in a child. And I mean, my own case, and I'm going to give my own story, that was the case. When a father figure taught me that I could become a lawyer, I became a lawyer because of that. I just felt, it was like a confirmation. This is who you are. This is who you're going to become. And that calling out of purpose became my destiny. My music teacher, Form 2, telling me you could make a good lawyer. And it was a calling of destiny.
Yes.
I became a lawyer as a result. So identity, purpose, but also, as I said, gender. Yeah, gender. You see, when children begin to now understand that they're becoming a man, especially a boy, then it's a father's voice and modeling of masculinity that affirms them for who they are becoming. Interestingly, the same with ladies. When they're becoming a woman, yes, they identify with their mother for femininity, but it's the affirmation of their father or father figure that begins to grow them into womanhood. So from a lot of angles, that is destiny.
Wow.
Yeah.
I agree. I forgot you're a counselor and you can lay your kiss and you rest your kiss.
Yeah.
Pastor Mbevi, you've become pastor to men in terms of looking at the role of a man and laying it so clearly and helping us as men being affecting the society that we live in, because reading your book, Daddy Destiny, Boys to Men, or transforming, unleashing the man, and other books that you've written.
Yeah.
What has really driven you, Simon Mbevi?
Yeah.
First, to be pastor to men, and secondly, to really focus on this not very common area where you get sponsors to give you money to support men, you know.
I think for me, it's my own personal experience.
Yeah.
Just growing up and the father hunger that I grew up with. My father died when I was 8 years old, which is really when a child begins to reach out to their daddy or to find a father alternative if a father is not there. So the father hunger that I went through, just reaching out for a daddy and not finding one, trying to clutch myself onto a few father figures and not really finding one who sort of owned me and began to speak into my life. So my own story made me imagine the thousands of people out there that grow up with father hunger. And I met many of them. Fellow, students who are also thinking and calling out for fatherhood. I remember when I went to do law in the University of Nairobi, and I gathered a few young men that we used to meet together and talk. And then I realized out of 10 or 12 of us, there was only 1 or 2 who had a good relationship with their father. That's when I began to realize this thing is not only me who has a father hunger, it's a widespread thing. Since then until today, when I get into a room, I find the majority of the people, not the minority, or not even half, the majority of the people usually have not had a great relationship with their dad. And so those are the things that bothered me. And I began to realize, if man fails at his highest office, then a lot fails with him. Because, a man grows through all these stages as a boy, and then as a man, and then as a husband, then as a father, and really he ends up as an elder. And so fatherhood is probably one of the highest offices of a man, roles a man gets to play. And it's in that role that he gets to affect a lot, because even the word father means source or foundation. The beginning, the initiator, the father of a community, the father of a family, the father, that's the initiator. And so when a man fails in that role, it affects a lot. It affects a lot. So for me, it's my story, and then meeting a lot of people that have gone through this challenge of fatherhood or fatherlessness, or not good fatherhood, and how it has affected them, that made me realize we need a conversation on this matter. Masculinity means a lot to a lot of people, whether it's wives, whether it's children, whether it's to the society. Fatherhood is a big deal. And so if we don't deal with it and begin to think about it and then go down to, because fatherhood is always a culmination of a journey. So we don't start helping a father when he's a father. We begin helping the boy, and then we help the man, and then we help the husband, then we help the father, and then eventually we are going to have better destinies because of that. So it's personal as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pastor Mbevi, it's a bit disturbing as well, as you said it, when you say that fatherhood is one of the highest office a man can hold. Because I've heard somebody said that men are very good in their businesses, they're good as CEOs, as their leaders of their shares and everything else.
Yeah.
And someone said that how can you be successful in a place where you can be replaced and become a failure in a place you cannot be replaced?
Yeah.
Because as a father, you cannot be replaced.
Yeah.
But as a CEO, you can immediately something happens, you are replaced.
Yeah.
Even I understand you're replaced before you leave, because you must have a succession planning for an organization. So before you go, you're already replaced. But then as a father, you can never be replaced.
Yeah, I mean, as a father, you're the only father your children will ever have. They may have a father figure or someone else mentoring them, but you are the only father. I think there's a time I was watching TV, and I'll probably not mention his name, but this is someone I had really looked up to across the continent. He's a story, he's a hero to a lot of people. And I remember watching after he had passed on, his son was being interviewed on television. And so I was watching this conversation, very keenly, because I respected this man. But then the son was asked, well, your daddy was a hero to a lot of people, not only in Africa, but beyond. So what do you feel about that? And this young man, well, not exactly as young, but this is what he said. He said, the world had a hero, and I did not have a father.
Ooh,
I missed a father. I wish my dad was my father. I mean, I wish this man was a real father to me. But really, the world respects him, but he was out there trying to make a name for the world. He did not really make a name at home. That's what he said.
Wow.
Well, it sounded like a little harsh, but it was his reality. That he said, I never had time with my dad. He was so busy out there trying to fix the problems of a nation and of the world that he never had time for me at home. And that really bothered me. And I took a notebook that I was holding and a pen, and I wrote this statement out of my response, as a response to that statement from the man. And I wrote, it's better for a man to be crowned at home as a hero and then celebrated in the world than to be crowned in the world as a hero and then celebrated at home.
That's powerful. Say that again.
So it's better for a man to be crowned a hero at home, to those who matter most to you. Because the world there, they sang on Palm Sunday. They sang, they celebrated Jesus as a king who is coming into Jerusalem. Then a week later, they said, crucify him.
Yes.
So the world out there will celebrate you today and crucify you tomorrow. But at home, where those relationships are almost eternal, so to speak. It's where you build your legacy. That's the place you should be celebrated as a hero. So it's better to be crowned as a hero there and then celebrated out there, other than for the world to crown you as a hero, and then your children and your wife and those near you are wondering, where is that hero? We don't know him. We don't know him. The world knows him, but we don't know him. So that's when I decided I want to be really involved. And this is the thing. I think because man was created and he woke up to work. If you look at Genesis 2:15, man was created and placed in the Garden of Eden. And so the first thing he was given was a work assignment. Cultivate this place and keep it safe. That's a work assignment. Then a few verses later, verses 17 or 18, is when God says it's not good for a man to be alone. So he knew work before he knew family. I think that's why we have a tendency, which is an unfortunate tendency,
Yes.
usually to go for work and prioritize work before relationships. Before relationships. Maybe we should learn from the women, because the women prioritize relationships as compared to work,
correct.
generally. And maybe it's because now when she was created from the side of a man and formed, then she woke up to a man to relate with, and then later was shown the work. So maybe we shouldn't allow work to take us away from family. I really believe that what really matters is relationships, because work is going to come and go, but relationships endure for a long time. The other day I was telling some people, some men, challenging them to really focus on their families. I was telling them, it's interesting, when we die, we rarely celebrate the dead people, by talking about their work. Usually we talk about three things. Number one, we usually say, this person lying down here was a great person because of their character. We usually say they were kind, they were loving, they were patient. We talk about character. So this person had a good character. Number two, we talk about relationships. He was a good father. He was a good husband. He was a good neighbor. He was a good workmate. Those are relationships. He was a good buddy. We used to hang out together and talk. We talk about relationships because that goes beyond the grave. Relationships. Lastly, we talk about impact. This person was great because of what they did to our school, or to some orphans, or to other people, which really is also a manner of relationship. So at the end of the day, relationships are very crucial. And as men, we need to realize when we cheat on the family to work, eventually it's never worth it. It's never worth it. Nobody in their deathbed has ever wished they spend more time at work, as it said. They always wish they spend more time at home with their children and with their wife, and also with the other people that they had a relationship with. So I'm just saying, men, we need to be warned. Let's not cheat on the family, by having an affair with work. Let's just realize relationships at home are very crucial. They give us a legacy way after we are gone.
Simon Mbevi, I'll come back to statistics. But before we go to the stats, let me just pick you. I can almost hear Adam saying, look, you're saying I don't spend as much time. But then the current Eve will say, boss, bring the bacon first. If you stay home for a few days and give us and you don't have bacon at home, look, you're not being man enough. How can they balance?
Well, there's a balance. There's a time to work and there's a time to relate and be there for your children. I remember some commitment I made when my children were very young. I said I didn't want to travel anywhere for more than 3 weeks, to deny a long time from my children. And it's cost me over the time. And I said until my children are at least, the last born is 12 years old. Now the last born is 13, so now I can travel for more than 3 weeks. But at that point, I was just saying my children are young. They need me. They need that relationship, because if I don't build that relationship when they are young, when they are older, the relationship will not be there. And I cannot start it off when they are 20 or 18 or 17. By that time, they have other priorities. I need to start it early. So I made some commitments. I said, work is going to be here. And now that the last born is 13, I can do as much work as I want. One day they're going to be all out of my house. I can work, for way longer, of course, with my wife, because she still needs me. So I think, yes, the women are saying we need the bacon, but we have 8 hours to work. After that, let's relate with our children. We have 6 to 8 hours to work. And sometimes we can incorporate work into our children's lives. For example, there are times that I decide I'm traveling for work for a week or 2. Let me bring one of my children so that as I'm working, I'm incorporating them. These days, instead of work-life balance, we also talk about work-life integration. that very well. It was easier to do it. When, if your father was a herdsman taking care of his cows, he took the children, the boys with him. And in the process, they were working together. We would relate with my mother when we were farming. You know, while we are farming, but we are talking, we are relating. Sometimes I want to drive and go somewhere over the weekend, and I pick one of the children, we go together, and we relate as I work. Okay. So it's not just stop work and relate. Sometimes it's incorporate your family into your work to the degree that that's possible. So we can push and work long hours and later regret, because we don't have a relationship with our fathers. I remember one guy telling me that the longest trip he had was with his father from here to Nakuru.
Longest trip?
Yeah, longest trip.
Silence.
And he said there was silence. There was nothing to talk about. We just got into the car and, he said, my daddy asked me, are you belted? I say, yeah, I'm belted. And it was quiet until Naivasha. And
for yogurt or something?
Yeah, for yogurt. He said, you want some yogurt? So they stopped somewhere, he bought the yogurt, and then it was quiet again until Nakuru. And he said it was very awkward. We had nothing to talk about. Mm-hmm. And it's sad when later in life, with your child, you don't have anything to talk about, because when you could have laid the foundation during their formative years, 5 to 8 years, and then their preteen and teenage years, you didn't build the relationship. So later in life, it's quiet. And I think that's why a lot of men die, very lonely lives, because they didn't invest in those relationships early in life. We did a study actually here in this church some years ago, and we found from what we did that an average father spends about 9 minutes with their children a day. 9 minutes, that's completely not enough. Huh? It's far from being enough. An average mother in the same study, it showed then spend about 32 minutes with their children. That's almost 4 times. So fathers, we shortchange ourselves, and in the process we become lonely later. So what I'm saying is, let there be a balance, but let there also be an integration. Integration, yes. Where you integrate your time with your children. I think during COVID we realized you can have some times where you integrate. Say, sit here as I work, but we can laugh together. We can see something fly around and then talk about it together. We are in the same room, so we can connect. And I think our forefathers had the opportunity to do that very well. If your daddy was a blacksmith, you became one.
A blacksmith, yes.
Yeah, if Joseph was a carpenter, then Jesus did carpentry with him. And in the process, you connect. And actually, for men, that is fathers and their sons, they connect best as they work. As they work. If you are doing nyama choma, bring your son. As you choma that nyama, he's going to ask you a question. You're going to talk. You're going to end up talking about sexuality or work or education. In the process, you connect.
Okay.
So we cannot have that excuse. Yes, when the children need the money, yes, their mother or the girlfriend wants to see your wallet,
yes,
and whether you can support them. But work without relationships is going to end you in a very bad, lonely place.
Wow.
So let's balance, let's integrate.
Let's integrate.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Simon Mbevi, for that. Very clear, very candid. We talked about some statistics in the beginning of the program.
Yeah.
What do you think about those statistics?
This conversation continues next week on Friday at 7:20 p.m. exclusively on Hope TV.